The county of Navezgane, Arizona, based on the average housing and potential careers available in this sparse area, was a relatively simple place. People worked, people went to school, drank, occasionally took their kids to the park. But some citizens of Navezgane led much more interesting lives. There were the wealthy few, tucked just away from the common folk, who made their nests here and burrowed deep, perhaps in more ways than one. Today, for our first installment in the Stories of Navezgane series in Alpha 20, we're going to dive into the complexities of a new addition to Navezgane. And boy, am I excited for it! We're going to make a few connections and a few assumptions that I haven't seen anyone else make, and possibly crack the code of the origins of the zombie virus and some of the most pivotal characters in the story of Navezgane. Today, we're going to explore House Modern 18 together, equal parts luxury and mystery. Let's see what secrets it has to offer. Welcome to episode 11 of the Untold Stories of Navezgane. In this series, we're going to explore and dissect the most interesting places in the default setting of 7 Days to Die. From mountaintop mansions to fortified factories, we're going to learn the stories of those who did and didn't make it. A wealthy individual is driving home. They spent some time making the proper arrangements. They pass by their neighbors sitting outside. They wave politely as they pull up to their gated driveway. They pass through the gate, enter their garage in the empty spot to the right, and the garage door shuts behind them. They won't be seen for several days. One could assume that if they were to get a peek into the garage, they'd see our mystery multimillionaire step out of their car and enter their exorbitant abode, kicking off their shoes and enjoying the finer things in life. One would be wrong. For despite the brilliant sculptures and fountain in the front, the pool, fireside lounge, tennis court, and gym in the back, despite the lavish 4-bed, 2.5-bath, 2-living-room, 1.5 kitchen estate, complete with a home theater, wine cellar, and office in this housing market, sheesh, they won't be spending much time here. Well, not up here. Seem familiar? Well, the easiest way to find what I'm alluding to would be for our imaginary one to peek back into the garage shortly after our mysterious magnate has come home. This isn't a test. Even before the apocalypse, the car they arrived home in would have just disappeared, leaving nothing behind but a suspicious iron outline in the concrete floor. So, now what? One wrong move, one noise too loud made, and the hidden horde within this hazardous home begins to hurry toward us. Quickly dash through the halls, past the kitchen, then the living room, bust into the master bedroom and through the master bath, and there, just beyond the home office, you'll find it. A mysterious ladder leading down. With no time to lose, as an increasingly concerningly large horde approaches from within, close the hatch and head down. You'll find yourself within a hall of tubes and vents. Another crash, time to move. As you rush through this narrow corridor of brick, several more crashes echo on concrete as fresh undead emerge from the final hiding places of their previous lives. Rushing past an eerily still-lit red light in the back of the home theater, you'll come across a disturbingly busted vault door. Slam it behind you with all your might and you're here. What looks to be a security checkpoint. For what? An old spotlight dimly attempts to illuminate you and hide the 2 slits in the wall behind it. Years ago, this is where you would have been gunned down. But it's been some time since that was a possibility. Now, there's nothing here but the remains of what must have been a last stand. Open the final door before you and the true mystery of this estate is revealed. Now, we've found what we came here for. There's a lot to unpack, and it's even more harrowing than the journey to get here, so let's start with a tour. Other than the small horde of undead that now call this home, down here the first thing we'll find is that mysteriously vanished car from the garage above. It appears a secret lift would bring our opulent operator right down to their secret bat cave. Nearby, weapons, food, and other supplies, likely a husk of what was once stocked here, line some shelves. Just beyond this, another vault door reveals a staircase leading directly up to the interesting mystery room just beyond the garage above. This was a security tower. Elsewhere on this level, a very simple bathroom and kitchenette, and a set of desks and monitors. What they were doing here, we'll have to come back to that. A mere hop, skip, and jump away, we'll find another office of some kind. Given the only decor here are a few simple clocks and a wine cabinet, perhaps this once belonged to a middle school principal. I'm sorry. The next area over is where things get really dark and interesting. In what I can only describe as a drug lord's prison cell, 2 well-decayed bodies and several ratty mattresses line the concrete, draped with rusted chains. In the next room over, we'll find the only other room prisoners here probably ever got to see. A once bright standing work light, a single table and a chair, a cork board, and one more chair stood beneath another light and directly in front of a very large battery. I probably don't have to spell out for you that this is an interrogation room, and not a very friendly one at that. I don't think anyone played the role of good cop down here. Unfortunately, things don't get too much better further below. A large generator room once powered this entire facility, and just beyond that, in the remnants of sandbag walls and boxes, an armory, still locked up tight. And I mean an armory. If we're looking at the remnants of what was once stocked here, security was taken very seriously. And finally, beyond exposed infrastructure and utility, we'll find the last piece to this very puzzling puzzle. A technically walled-off area, viewable from above. Here, a lone target stands guard over decaying corpses and a coffin. Given the layout of this area, it looks to me as though someone would stand about here, at this table, with a weapon, and execute people? And then they'd be buried. Right here. The last thing they saw, a bright light and a muzzle flash. It looks like this coffin was to be filled and buried right here. But it's not the first. If we're sneaky, we can actually find that there's another, already 6 feet below. There are almost certainly other nooks and crannies to this entire estate, not discussed thus far, but that's the gist of it. And now we get to take a step back from the table and assess what the hell was going on here, and what does it mean for our story of Navezgane? Well, somebody was taking people. They held them prisoner, questioned them ruthlessly, threatening and likely executing on those threats to shock their prisoners into submission and compliance. Then, when a prisoner's usefulness ran dry, one way or another, they were executed and buried right here, within the lair. So, then, what was someone trying to dig up, metaphorically speaking? Who was asking the questions? What did they want? To be honest, there aren't any in-your-face answers to be found here. At a glance, it appears to simply be an underground lair where one would hide away from the world with their sick and twisted hobbies. But it wouldn't be so fun if there were an easy answer, would it? I think now is a good time to shout out a big thank you to a certain commenter on one of my other videos. This person left a comment on my Best of 2021 video. Please go watch it if you haven't already. I spent a lot of time on it and I'd really appreciate it. That led me here. They pointed out their awe in the face of House Modern 23, which doesn't exist, but I think they were trying to lead me here. Point is, Hunk believed this location, probably this location, to be connected to the origin of the zombie virus and to certain characters within the lore of Navezgane. I think they're onto something. So let's roll with that. And thanks, Hunk. As for the who of this story, there are a few context clues we have to work with, albeit all of them are pretty loose, but I mean, when has that not been the case? Firstly, the location. This not-so-humble abode is nestled deep in the deserts of Navezgane, where most of the evidence of the Apache tribe's existence here can be found. And interestingly, just a few stone's throws away from the original location of Higashi Pharmaceuticals. Higashi has been moved as of A20, so take that with a barrel of salt. But it's still interesting. Second, as we've seen, this isn't the first wealth-ridden home with a secret bat cave below it. The first installment in this series covered what I've dubbed the Mountaintop Mansion, where some kind of research was being performed on the zombie virus? Yeah, it's a lot. Finally, so far there are only 2 individuals in official and very findable lore in-game that could possibly be connected to this operation other than the traders, but I'm gonna rule them out. There are several corporations and organizations that could fit the bill, but only 2 people. The Duke and Noah. I'm gonna go out on several limbs here and even touch on that first Stories of Navezgane video, so bear with me for this upcoming theory. It is a stretch, but I genuinely believe it to be the most concrete story anyone's got so far. though please direct me and correct me in the comments if you think I'm wrong. I believe that the mountaintop mansion actually belonged to Noah, and this house belonged to the Duke. This fits everything we know narratively, as Noah is the only individual in Navezgane who has directly helped the player character, portraying him as a good guy, meaning also that the secret lab underneath the mountaintop mansion was most likely looking for a cure to the zombie virus, as I've theorized in the past. Also, thematically, this portrait we've discussed once before is labeled Painting Noah, and we've hypothesized that this is in fact the very same Noah that helps the player character whenever you start a new world. But the color scheme, predominantly white, perhaps alluding to the winter biome in Navezgane? And where is the mountaintop mansion? You guessed it, atop a wintry mountain. Now I know we're getting a little national treasury here, but it keeps going. As we've discussed in another previous episode, this portrait is labeled in the game files as Painting Duke, and it matches pretty well with the imagery on Duke's casino tokens used as currency in Navezgane. And what colors do we see here? Yellows and oranges and some browns. This alludes to the desert biome, I'd wager, right here, where this house lies. Again, I know this is all a little bit of a stretch, but I'm not the first to make that last color correlation. The fandom wiki entry for the Duke has actually pointed out this possible desert connection for some time, and here it is. That same wiki page also postulates that perhaps if Duke's casino were ever added as a location to the game, that it would land in the desert biome. That hasn't happened, not yet, but now we have this. And then there's the Apache connection. Though we're making a few more assumptions, the Duke seems to be connected to the tribe. Most likely he was one of them, perhaps even a sort of leader among them. With all of this taken into consideration, I thoroughly believe this is the former home of the Tyrant of Navezgane, the Duke himself. That then begs the question, what was he doing down here? What was he trying to learn? Well, now we've set up a true rival narrative, Noah versus the Duke, diametrically opposed forces of good versus evil? Maybe. But if we move forward, assuming that Noah was looking for a cure to the zombie virus in the snow-capped mountains of the north, the next logical assumption in this narrative would be that the Duke was working against him. And though there's no evidence here of the Duke creating the zombie virus or aiding in its creation in any way, not only have we posed that possibility in the past, in the very early stages of the game's development, it was strongly alluded that that was the case. Or that at the very least, the Duke was benefiting from the virus. I think what we have here is some pretty strong evidence of the Duke's involvement in the origins of the zombie virus. He wasn't dumb or reckless enough to have such a thing lying beneath his bedroom, but he was cunning enough to get away with imprisoning his opposition here. In the creation of a zombie virus of such a threat to humanity, certainly would-be whistleblowers and second-guessing accomplices would sprout up in the process. The Duke just couldn't have that. So he took them here. He imprisoned them, tortured them, buried them, and when he was able to get his hands on one of Noah's people, the people most actively working against him in the literal and figurative underground, well, that's where the battery came in. The Duke needed to stay 2 steps ahead. He needed to know every move Noah and his team were making, and this is how he got his information. This is how he won. So I know I've thrown a lot out there in this video, so let's wrap things up, as we always do, with a concise summary of what we believe we've learned today. In the years preceding the end of days, as various countries aimed epic devices of destruction toward each other, a different war was being fought under everyone's noses, right here in Navezgane, Arizona. 2 forces raced to a climactic finish. The Duke, kingpin of the Apache tribe and supervillain extraordinaire, wanted more. He saw where the world was headed and wanted to secure his place in the inevitable wastes of humanity's folly. He wanted power, an army, a dynasty, and he built it on casino tokens and pathogens. As the Duke worked toward this end, one brave man headed the operation to thwart him, Noah. As the Duke plotted and schemed in the south, Noah worked in the north to find a cure to the Duke's zombie disease before it was too late. The Duke tested his disease, slowly at first, but it spread like wildfire across the country and likely the world. Noah assembled his team in response, built a secret laboratory beneath his own home, and studied the disease for all it was worth, working his way towards stopping the Duke before the bombs fell and humanity was forced to face 2 extinction events at once. The Duke caught on to Noah, and though he wasn't able to stop him directly, he was able to secure the right people with the right information to get ahead. He put his dissenters down before they could scream. He whittled away at those who would oppose him, ruthlessly. Noah came close to succeeding, but it was too late. The Duke's virus had spread too far, the bombs dropped, and Navezgane became one of the last bastions of hope for humanity, with the Duke at the top, just as he'd planned. Noah and some of his people survived. They formed a settlement of their own, the White River, and to this day may still be working to take down the Duke, the man with his hands in the end of the world. But then, besides where this all ends, there's still one more question left in this tale. If the zombie virus wasn't developed here, beneath the Duke's home, or here, beneath Noah's, then where? Who helped the Duke develop his army? Where did the undead menace begin? I think that's a story for another time. So until then, and until next time, thanks for watching.